And we're rolling.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Hey, Dylan.
Hey, good morning, Lee. What's
Here
up?
we are. It's Friday again.
Yep.
Seemed like just the other day it was Friday, and here it is Friday again.
Yeah.
Big Kitty, come on. We're having a podcast. Calling all kitty cats. Yeah, it's Friday. It feels like spring, too,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's gotten
outside.
a lot
It's like
nicer.
it's all of a sudden it's just slightly different. The nights are not quite as cold,
Yeah.
even though it's never that cold here.
Right. It's
So
getting
funny.
really.
Like I talk about it being cold. Everybody thinks it's crazy. Anyway, I wanted, on Tuesday, Gina Aguilera is going to come. We're going to have the boxing thing.
Yeah.
So I thought I would talk a little bit about my boxing background and how I slid into that. And
Yeah, that'd be great. I've been wanting to hear more about that.
yeah. Okay,
yeah,
so I'm
excellent.
just going to start and talk about it, everybody. So my partner in Killer Shrimp, Ricky, her brother wanted to be a boxer. He was already a kickboxer back in the day, and he was kickboxing, and so he wanted to try real boxing, so I became his manager, blah, blah, blah. I think I told the story once before on the air already. So anyway, that's how I led into it. So when we were hanging out at this one gym, there was this old guy. His name was Ed Cousins, and he was an old guy, had been around since, like really old, and he'd been around. He knew Jack Johnson and people like that. He was like an old guy, but he just knew everybody. And but he's one of those old guys around the gym, anyway, he never got the respect he deserved, but he was always part of boxing, one of those kind of characters.
Okay, yeah.
And there's many guys like that in boxing. They're like, but anyway, he really very enthusiastic about boxing. Great guy. Yeah, we really hit it off. So anyway, so my boxer decided he didn't want to fight after he got knocked out in sparring,
Oh, really? Yeah.
and not a real bad knockout, but enough to put him down, and he goes, oh,
Right.
So he reconsidered. He decided, well, maybe he didn't want to be a professional boxer. It was hard to argue with that decision because, it's not something you do as recreation,
Right.
or I might try that as an occupation. No, man, it's like, it's got to be a different kind of motivation going on to do
Right.
that shit, Anyway, so he didn't wind up not doing that, but we were going to open a gym, and so it was going to be a combination kickboxing and boxing gym. But then, I decided I wanted to just have a boxing gym. I didn't think a combination gym would really work out that well. And
Okay.
I'd seen other kickboxing gyms, and I just, I was into boxing. I didn't want
Right.
a kickboxing gym.
Seems like a
And-
different type of crowd, right? That would be.
Well, it's just a
kickboxing.
different martial art.
Yeah,
Boxing's
yeah.
different,
Yeah.
It's just a different sport. And I was into boxing. It's like if you're into one sport and somebody says, no, do this sport. It was,
Right.
It was similar, they both have a ball or whatever the sport makes sports similar. But I felt to me like it was very different. So I wanted boxing. So this old guy, Ed, that I had met over at one of the other gyms, he decided to throw in with us, and so like I gave him his respect, and I let him sort of like run the place because he knew what was up.
Okay.
And so we built this gym, and it was really funky, and it was in Venice. And it was at the time it was called West Washington Boulevard. Now it's called Abbott Kinney. They changed the name
Yeah, that's right.
to be cool and hip, but it used to be called West Washington Boulevard. It was the funniest street. It's
Yeah.
more gentrified now.
Right.
But anyway, so I opened this gym, and my idea was I didn't want a gym with a bunch of yuppie boxers, I
Okay.
thought it would be such an embarrassing thing to open a gym and have a bunch of lawyers and doctors in there pretending to be boxers,
Right.
I would just make my skin crawl. I just didn't want to do that. And so Ed, the old guy, he said, well, maybe we can let a couple of those guys in so he could have some money from them, you know what I mean? And I was very resistant. I didn't want to do that. So, and there was something else we learned about those kind of guys. Like every now and then one of them would show up almost tough, and they'd want to do it, and Ed would want to take some of their money. So we allowed them to be in the gym, but very, very rare. But always to a man, what happens was they always say, well, when am I ready to spar? They keep training. They might train for a month or so, and you go, no, you're not ready yet. You're not ready yet. And
I see.
it's almost like a scam. You tell them you're not ready yet because the second they spar, they're never coming back. And so what happens to these guys is they hit the bag, they spar around, they do a little light shadow boxing and shit, but they really don't get in there and mix it up. So then they say, come on, I want to spar, I want to do it. And finally they say, okay, you can do it. And they do it, and they get bipped, because usually they're sparring somebody that's better than them.
Right.
They're taking it easy on them,
Okay. Yeah.
And it's part of the scam, when you're dealing with those kind of boxers who aren't real boxers.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't like that. I didn't like that aspect. I didn't want that kind of a gym. I didn't, and we didn't have that kind of a gym. We only had a couple of people like that in the whole history of our gym that we allowed to train there. But here's what happens when they spar. They say, "I'll see you tomorrow," and you never see them again.
Oh, wow. Really?
So they'll train for 4 or 5 weeks, and the second they spar, they're not coming back.
Wow.
Almost to a man, they don't come back if they spar. Unless you want them to come back and you take it easy on them in sparring and you don't hit them.
Right.
Then they think they did good and they'll come back. So if you're really trying to milk money out of them, you could pretend spar with them and never really crack them,
Okay.
But usually they want to know what it's like to mix it up. So you give them one good little punch and they never come back,
Wow.
So I didn't want to play that game because a lot of gyms do that, purported boxing gyms, but they're not real boxing gyms, places that do that. So I felt really compromised when we did that a couple of times because I told Dad, "Come on, man. We can't do this shit. We can't let people like that in here. It's just not that kind of a gym." So anyway, it was never a big issue though because it was a real gym. So we're open a couple of weeks, and things start clicking in this gym. And all of a sudden, Tommy Hearns comes there and starts training.
Oh, wow.
This is towards the end of his career. But when he did the Virgil Hill fight, he trained for the Virgil Hill fight in my gym.
Wow, that's cool.
So he was in there for weeks, man. They were in there for a couple of months getting ready for that fight, every day. It was pretty intense. And a bunch of great boxers came through there. James Toney came in there, worked out a couple of times. Tony Tubbs was in there. And there was this boxer in there. He was a sparring partner, not for Hearns. He was a heavyweight, but he was in there sparring with some other guys. And he seemed unusually tough. And whenever he sparred with anybody, they would never let the press around because he was tough and they didn't want. He just was a handful, this guy. So I start talking to him and I find out his record is 6-10.
Okay.
He's got 6 wins and 10 losses.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
Now in boxing, if you have 10 losses, you're just an opponent. You get fights to lose.
Right.
People book you in a fight because they assume you're going to lose. You have 10 losses.
Right.
But this guy was unusually tough, and his record didn't belie his abilities.
Oh, wow.
So I started talking to him, finding out about how he got 10 losses on his record. And so as he explained it to me, I realized he'd really been taken advantage of. He came out of prison in Louisiana and just was taken advantage of. He was used as an opponent and,
right.
He was put in over his head too early with people, and he just had a lot of losses, 6-10. So at the point I met him, he was just a sparring partner. But I went on to manage this guy, and we became number 3 in the world.
Wow, and that's Lionel Butler?
Lionel Butler.
Yep.
And we became number 3 in the world in WBC. And we fought Lennox Lewis when he was number 2 in the world on HBO.
That's amazing, man.
It was a huge fight. It was a huge fight. For us, it was the biggest fight that I was part of because, after that, we lost that fight. So anyway, and that's a whole story. And I got all these stories about leading up to the fight and all this intrigue back and forth with Don King. And there was all these lawsuits after the fight. It was just nothing but lawsuits.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell the whole story. But anyway, I'm just saying that's what came out of the gym was me managing this fighter. And it's the kind of fighter nobody would manage a guy like that, a 6-10 record. You think about that.
Right,
If you ask anybody in boxing, you're going to manage a guy with a 6-10 record like it was a joke. People thought we were a joke, know.
Right.
No, literally, people thought it was a joke. I had people come to me and say, "Why are you wasting your money?" And telling me, "What are you doing? You should come with us, invest your money." But they wanted money, but they were saying, "You're crazy to put your money in this guy who's got a 6-10 record." And I'm going, no, this guy's the real deal, and we're going to do it, And
yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, so I took this fighter who was 6-10 record. We weren't even ranked in the top 100. We were just nothing. And we went all the way to number 3 in the world in record time.
That's amazing.
And it took us like 15 months or something to go from nowhere to fighting Lennox Lewis when he was number 2 and we were number 3. And Riddick Bowe was the champ at that time in WBC.
Okay, yeah.
And anyway, I got lots of great boxing stories. Like Yeah, lots of great boxing stories. The second we got into the top 10, I started getting threatening phone calls in the middle of the night.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
Oh, shit.
yeah. It was great, you know. And people would tell me I have no business in boxing, and I'd say, "Yeah, you're exactly right. I don't have any business, but here I am."
Wow.
You know, I wasn't a tough guy. I'm not acting like a tough guy. I'm saying,
Right.
"Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right." I just agree with them. Yeah, you have no business being a boxer. I go, "You're right, absolutely." But here I am with my fighter. Give me a break. I got a 6-10 fighter, and you guys are giving me a hard time. Come
Right.
on.
So these guys would just call you in at
Randomly
night,
at middle of the night, my
anonymous.
phone would ring, and I'd pick it
Yeah.
up. And then I talked to somebody else. So there used to be this guy, Shelley Finkel. I don't
Okay.
know if Shelley's still alive or not, but he managed a lot of boxers. He was a great manager, managed a lot of championship boxers.
Okay.
He was a real deal manager, and he used to be in the music business.
Okay.
And so that was sort of a connection. I'd never done business with him in the music business, but we had that common ground. So anyway, I would call him for advice because he was a real deal manager and I was just a wannabe fuckhead, you know what I mean? And so I would call him up for advice, you know, like I'd call him and he'd go, "Oh yeah, that's so-and-so's guys," you know, like he goes, "That, don't worry about it. That's his guys, that they do that," you know. And there's only a few players in the boxing world, so everybody knows who I'm talking about.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, at the time there was only a few people that operated like that, you know, like
Right.
so they tried to like rattle you, which it did to some extent. I mean, I called him up and said, "Hey, what's up? These guys are threatening me." And he's
Yeah.
going, "Oh, don't worry about it." Yeah, what was I going to tell you? There was a reason I told you that. Oh yeah, so the boxing was really fun and great. Anyway, Tommy Hearns wound up being at the gym for almost a year and a half. He got
Wow,
prepared for
okay.
another fight there, but I sold the gym during that time. Ed stayed there at the gym. The old guy who I originally did the gym with, he stayed there, but I left to manage my boxer because what I didn't want was a gym like a lot of these gyms, they have their own boxers, right? So like it's their territory. You go into their gym, it's their territory.
I see. Yeah.
And I wanted my gym to be like neutral territory, so anybody could come train there, and they wouldn't feel like they're going into somebody else's turf to train.
Right.
So they could just rent the place and it'd be like their own gym. So that's how it was with Tommy Hearns. He was there. So Tommy Hearns was there, and so Muhammad Ali started coming around. Now you got to understand, this is in 1992, I guess.
Okay.
That would have to be 92, 93, something like that. So Ali was already messed up. You know, he wasn't good. But he knew Ed. Somehow he had some connection to Ed, this old guy.
Okay.
And so Ali would just come down and hang out at our gym. But, you know, if we would have had a public kind of gym with yuppies everywhere,
Right.
it would have never been like that, you know?
Yeah, I see what
So
you
here we
mean.
got a gym. We got Tommy Hearns in there training. We got Ali in there. His people would drop him off every day. He came for like 11 days in a row. I think he missed one day. And he'd have a rubber jumpsuit on top and bottom, and he'd sort of shadow box and fuck around and make little jokes. And then he'd sweat, though. He'd sweat like a motherfucker. He'd pull his rubber jumpsuit like this, and the water would just pour out of it.
Holy
and
shit.
Then he'd try to hit the speed bag, and he wasn't. I mean, he was really, even though he wasn't, you know, he was still shadow boxing and working up a total sweat.
Yeah.
You know, and then. Yeah, it was so cool. And you got to understand, man, I felt like I died and got into heaven. Once again, I felt like that little kid organ player in the band sitting in the back going, whoa.
That's amazing.
I'm saying, here I am, man. I opened a gym, and 2 weeks later, here's fucking Tommy Hearns. And a couple of weeks later, here's Muhammad Ali. They're all in here hanging out. Everybody's doing. I go, I can't fucking believe it, man. I just sit over in the corner and be quiet, just like when I played the little organ in the band, man. I just sat there and went, oh, fuck. There's everybody I ever thought was cool. Here I am in my gym, fucking Tommy Hearns, Muhammad Ali. I'm thinking, fuck, I've died and gone to heaven.
That's amazing.
Tony Tubbs is coming, James, Tony, all these people are in and out of the gym. Sports Illustrated's in there, all these people. And I'm just sitting there saying, fuck, I can't believe it. My life is charmed. You know, it seems like every time I do shit, just shit happens and it's so beautifully cool. Like there was no reason for my gym to be a success, you know, and there's no reason for all these, I mean, a lot of people open gyms and they imagine themselves as tough guys. They train, they open a gym, whatever. Or guys with bread, they open a gym and they walk around and smoke cigars and act cool, you know, whatever they do, you know.
Right.
But me, man, I was thinking, man, I'm so lucky to be here. Give me the spit bucket. Yeah, you spit in, I'm the guy that holds the spit bucket. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, man, I was so happy to be there. So anyway, so I get this fighter. Everybody thinks I'm a joke that I've got a fighter that's 6'10". But pretty soon we're in the top 10. People don't think we're a joke because we're knocking people out. And we fought Tony Tubbs, who really was very sort of insulting to us. We had sparred with him once down at Hoover Street.
Okay.
And he was very insulting and not a nice, he wasn't nice. And so we wound up fighting him down in Louisiana, in Pensacola. So we flew down to Pensacola. We fought Tony Tubbs down there. But he was, I think he was mostly an LA guy at that point. But anyway, the fight was in Pensacola. We go down there, we fight, and we fucking knocked him out, man. Knocked him out so badass. And he was like arrogant at the fight, and he was dancing around for a couple of rounds, acting all cool, and just kind of schooling Lionel, because Lionel was more like a more deliberate fighter, sort of like Tyson, the same size guy, 5'10" and a half.
Okay, wow.
Same exact size, same weight, looked just like that.
Wow.
I mean, physically,
Yeah.
And so then they got up on the inside, man, and he threw a punch, and Lionel came around and turned that left hook, man, just turned it over perfect and just flattened his ass out. He was dead on the fucking floor, man. The guy was, Tony Tubbs was knocked out. I was so happy because he'd been disrespectful to us when we were at Hoover Street.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I remembered that. It was like a year earlier he had been really disrespectful to.
Wow.
That just there's it's boxing, man. You go in there and get your beat up by people, you know what I mean? And they don't give a shit about you, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, it felt really good. We fucking knocked him out.
That's great. Yeah, I stuck it to him.
we ended his career. I think that might have been his last fight.
No way. Wow.
He was not in his prime, but he was
Yeah.
But we fucking ended his career, and that felt good because he was disrespectful.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that is so cool.
Yeah. So that was fun.
Yeah, and your gym was called Quake City Boxing.
Quake City Boxing,
right?
but I didn't advertise it. It wasn't a big sign out front.
Oh, okay.
We were low key, man.
Yeah.
Our neighbors knew we were there, but that was it. We didn't have a thing boxing, none of that shit,
What about those banners that we had for our fights we did out front?
We just made those for
those are
the
new,
movie,
Gotcha.
for here,
I see.
but the gym had none of that shit.
I see.
We had our T-shirts. Yeah. Anyway, so Ali, let me get back to Ali.
Yeah.
Ali would come in, he would work out, and then he would go in the back and he would take a fucking nap.
Okay.
He would take a nap for 45 minutes, sometimes an hour and 15 minutes, whatever long he wanted to nap. He would just go back in there and nap.
Yeah.
And then Ed, the old guy, would go back in there and help him get up, and he would take a shower and get dressed, and he would come out back into the gym, It was all pretty funky, this gym. And everybody seemed to like it, So they have these benches in the boxing gym that are flat, and you hold the boxer does sit-ups on them and shit, and you hold their feet. The trainer stands and holds the feet while the guy does the stuff. He's talking to the boxer. You're training them every second.
Yeah.
And so we have one of those benches, and we'd have it all set up when he got dressed, when he come out from his nap and shit.
Yeah.
And he would come out and do magic tricks. I swear to God, he would
Really?
do magic
Wow.
tricks.
That's awesome.
And he had the most rudimentary magic tricks, like the kind of magic tricks that kids do when they first start out on magic.
Right.
With the little ropes and this is the most basic magic tricks. And he had
cool,
them all. He always had them with him in his pockets. And so he would come out and he'd come out and he'd do magic tricks, which is really amazing. He never got tired of doing them. And every time he'd do them, everybody would be like giving him, and there'd be guys in the gym, serious guys that like sparring partner guys that never smile, guys that just they're not smiley face guys.
Right.
Ali had such a strong humanity. His humanity was so amazing that even those guys would be smiling, man. Because
wow, yeah.
Guys that never crack a smile, he would bring the humanity right out of him, man.
That's amazing. Yeah.
He had a way about him, man. It was like shocking. Anyway, it was such a privilege to sit there all those days and watch him in my gym,
Yeah, that is so cool.
And it was so cool that he was comfortable there, comfortable enough to go in the back and take a nap and come out.
Right.
One time he was laying on one of those sit-up benches.
Yeah.
I hope everybody doesn't mind me telling all these Ollie stories, but it was so cool. He was laying on a bench and it was up against the wall, and he was sort of laying there with his eyes shut like this, and he had a bottle of water on his chest, and he was laying there, and all of a sudden he just leaps up and he goes, "It's magic time!" And we go, "Yeah, champ!" And everybody, and it's like so
wow,
cool,
That's awesome.
And right, and you got to understand, the whole time I'm always the farthest away from everybody. I'm always in the farthest corner.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm never up in anybody's face. I'm never up talking and hanging out with people.
Okay.
Never, ever do I come up and hang out and try to be part of the group. You know what I mean? I always stay back. I'm not training anybody. I'm not their trainer. I'm not nothing. And my gym is supposed to be neutral. So you're not coming in there so I can hang out with you.
Yeah, I see what
You're
you
coming
mean.
in there to train, you know.
Sure, yeah, that makes
and
sense.
so, like, that's a mistake. Some people make gyms and they think, you know, they want to be around that kind of energy. You know, I don't know why I was doing it, but it wasn't for that reason, you know. Anyway, I was really enthusiastic. So I had this plan. How long have we been talking?
Oh, we're at 20 minutes now.
Okay, I can talk a little more.
Yeah.
I had this plan when I got my boxer. You got to understand, Tyson's in prison, okay?
Okay.
Remember,
yeah.
he got convicted of whatever, raping
Yeah.
that girl or
That's right.
talking to her late at night or whatever he did that got him in prison.
Right.
Yeah. He was in prison, and so I had this plan. I have this fighter who looks just like Tyson, same size, same build, same age, just fucking like these guys look like bookends. Like we would go places and people would go, "Are you him?" And he'd go, "No." He really had that look, and so I had this plan. I thought, okay, we will become the champion. I had this whole progression in my mind from the time I started, and when Tyson comes out, we'll be the champ, and then we'll fight Tyson. It'll be the biggest fight in history, and the two guys will be these two guys that look exactly the same.
Wow.
It'll be the fight of these two guys. You know, it'll just be like amazing, right? So that was my plan, you know.
Wow. Okay.
And
cool,
so I kept plugging ahead, you know.
Nice.
And I went over to Dan Goosen, who was one of the Goosens over there. He ran the Tin Goose Boxing, which at the time was a factor in boxing in L.A. And he was allied with Bob Arum.
Oh, okay.
And so anyway, he wound up being he had a fighter who left him, and he had
We got a phone ringing, folks.
He had a fighter who left him, and fuck, I should have taken that call. Anyway, he had a fighter who left him, and so I thought he needed a championship fighter or something. So I went to him. I said, "I got this guy. I think he could be really good." Blah, blah. And so his brother, Joe Goosen, who's a really famous trainer, checked him out and decided, yeah, he is for. We went to his gym and he saw Lionel and agreed to train him. And so that was the start of my association with them and Bob Arum, and from there we went really in rapid succession with the help of those guys. In fact, they did everything.
Yeah.
We wound up number 3 in the world, man.
That's incredible, man. That is so awesome.
And if we would have won that fight, we would have been the champ, because what happened was Riddick Bowe had a press conference, threw his WBC belt in the garbage and vacated it.
Really?
And like the week before, we had fought Lennox Lewis, and he had won.
Yeah.
So when he threw his belt in the garbage, they just give the belt to Lennox. So if we would have won that fight, we would have been the heavyweight champion of the world.
Wow.
So
no
that's
way.
how close we got to pulling off my dream thing.
That's
you know
amazing.
what I mean? And all the stories leading up to the fight with Lennox Lewis are worth a whole day. I can talk about them for a whole day.
Yeah.
So anyway, everybody, that's all I have to say today. I'm going to get off the line right now, off the internet here, and I hope you enjoyed this, Dylan. You didn't get a chance to talk too much, but
No, it was great. I love hearing those stories about Muhammad Ali.
and I'm going to talk.
Tommy
I'm
Hearns.
going to talk Monday more boxing stories. Then Tuesday, Gene's going to come. So then you guys will all have a feeling for my background in boxing, my love for boxing, and my humbleness around the whole deal. Believe me, man, boxing is very humbling. If you go in there arrogant, you're in the wrong place. Man, I went in there humbled by the courage of these boxers and by the whole fucking trip, you know, and being around all those great, really real for real deal boxer guys. It was really fucking wonderful. It was an experience I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So when Jake Paul disrespected Muhammad Ali, I was thinking, fuck you, man. That was really bad. The guy's like a fucking saint. You can't do that. I'm still pissed about that. Everybody's still pissed about that. Yeah. So Mike Tyson, give that guy a good beating for us. We're all hoping for it. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to end on a negative note. Anyway, tomorrow I'm so jacked up talking about boxing. Tomorrow we're going to talk more about boxing. You're not going to believe some of this shit. I mean, Monday, today's Friday.
Right.
Okay, everybody, we're going to go now. Have a good weekend.
Thanks a lot, Lee. You too.
Yeah, I hope everybody enjoys themselves out there. I hope you like boxing stories. There are more coming. The next few days are going to be solid ass boxing. Okay, bye everybody. 3, 2, 1, poof.